40 Watters, welcome to this week's episode, 40 Watt Podcast. My name is Philip. I am your host. If you are new here, thank you for checking it out. Hope you'll keep coming back, and I hope you enjoy it. If you're returning, well, you know how this goes. This podcast is supported by a few really amazing folks that I have to mention at the top. We're going to do all that housekeeping so we can get right into the meat of the episode. You've already seen the title, which I'm sure was some absurdist take on something we talked about in this episode. And you've already seen the guests, so you know what's coming. First of all, if you are watching on YouTube, please click subscribe and the bell icon. It helps the episode and the podcast find other viewers. Share it with your friends. If you're listening in a podcast player, please hit the follow button and rate and review. Only if you like it, though. If you don't like it, you can keep those thoughts to yourself. Remember what your mom said. So, this podcast is brought to you by a couple of companies or three that I really need to talk about. First, we're going to talk about Maris Effects Pedals. I love the folks I do love the folks over at Maris, but I do also love their effects pedals. I've been really diving back into the Mercury X and trying to build my own patches. It's one of those pedals where the presets are so good, I almost never feel the need to make my own patches at all. So now I'm actually trying to get around to doing that and learning how to do all the cool things. It can do so much. It can actually be a pretty good tremolo pedal if you want to set it up to do that. So go check out Maris. The links are down below. Also, this podcast is brought to you by Summer School Electronics. Mark in Syracuse, New York is making some of the most fun pedals. We got to hang out a whole bunch a couple of weeks ago. You heard him on last episode of this podcast. I don't really need to tell you much more about what Mark does, except that it's really rad. I think he's making some really fun things, and I've been having a lot of fun with the middle school chorus lately. I like it on the vibe setting more than the chorus setting. So it has dual rates for your vibe and, well, for your vibrato. I shouldn't say vibe. Everybody thinks I mean univibe. For vibrato and chorus. So you can set one rate for each and switch between them. It's really cool. I like it a whole bunch. And lastly, this podcast is brought to you and has been for quite a while by Barry from Grez Guitars. Got to hang out with Barry also at Fretboard Summit and see some of the cool things he's making. I got to play one of his Grand Tour basses. I promise I'll quit talking about them at some point. But really, I should talk about the Mendocino. I have a Mendocino baritone, but I know that I'm going to eventually need to have a standard Mendocino, because it is one of the coolest guitars. Redwood top on a solid mahogany back and sides, one piece that he carves out. One of the best playing guitars, but also one of the best sounding guitars. Go check them out, grezguitars.com. Links are below. All right, that's enough talking. We're going to get into the meat of the episode. Welcome to those of you on YouTube that skipped to this point in the chapter list. This week is an episode that has been a long time coming because I have been a fan of Breña effects pedals for a long, long time. I bought one complete spur of the moment off of a Facebook post about 4 years ago. And Erik from Breña Effects, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing?
Man,
So happy to be here.
I'm so glad to finally have you on. I've been trying to coax you onto the show for a few years.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of your pedals at this point. Hey, you're busy. You don't do this you don't do the pedals thing as a full-time gig. So, you got to make the time for when you're not building and doing your regular job and spending time with your family. I get it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a lot to juggle, but I love every minute of it.
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a second, because for those of you that aren't aware of your company, I'll give the tiniest bit of a spiel. You kind of specialize in fuzz pedals, although you do some drive pedals. You really specialize in germanium and small batch runs. I have, for those watching on YouTube, see, this is why you watch on YouTube, I have my Mark III tone bender that I adore, that I have put, I don't know, a couple of dozen gigs on. It's starting to wear the battle scars of gigging. But I adore that thing, and I've got a whole bunch of others. I don't know, I have 7 or 8 of your pedals at this point. Eventually, you're just going to tell me stop buying them so other people can have them.
No.
But let's hear your story. I'm going to let you talk because none of the listeners actually want to hear me talk. How'd you get into guitar, first of all? And then how'd you get into pedal building? And then we're going to get into what you do as a day job and like how you balance doing this and that.
Okay. Okay. Guitar. My dad, I can thank my dad for that. When I was about 15, for Christmas, my dad got me a guitar, and I actually found it in the closet before Christmas, and I was snooping around
As
and
we
I
do.
saw it. I saw this. I still have the guitar. It's somewhere around here. And I saw this guitar and I was just like, oh my God, a guitar. I'm like, that's got to be for me. And so I had to keep my mouth shut. I had to like act surprised come Christmas. So that was when I got it, and I taught myself. I was just totally self taught. Never really took a lesson, which I should have. Um, and I grew up listening to my dad's vinyl records, and he was into rock and roll, and he had all kinds of different vinyl albums. And so the guitar gods were very inspirational to me. Um, and so then fast forward years later, I was acquiring pedals just here and
Mhm.
there, and I was broke and couldn't afford to buy very many. And then it was about 2006. I came across a website called BYOC,
Oh
and
yeah.
I was like, "You can buy a kit to build a pedal? What?" And bought a delay pedal from them, and got it. Put it together. It fired up the first time. I was hooked. I was really stoked. And so that's
It's awesome when
that's
it works the
basically where it
first
started.
time.
What's that?
It's awesome when it works the first time.
It
That
is.
doesn't always happen.
I thought I was like, oh, it's going to be like this every time. No,
Yeah.
not at all.
So
Yeah.
when did that transition from building kits to like, because at this point the stuff you're building, you're not necessarily reinventing the wheel on a lot of your builds, and
Right.
but
Right.
you do these small batches and you do them in these very particular ways, and you're very honed in on using germanium, sourcing transistors. That's why part of why you do small batch.
Yeah. Transistors are, well, especially germanium, are hard to come by. And that's why I try to find unopened sleeves of them or packages, boxes. It's really expensive. It's and out of like a big box or a sleeve, you're going to get like maybe 20% that are going to work for what I intended it for when I
Mm,
bought it.
right.
And then the rest of them I find uses over time, but some are too leaky, some are just dead transistors. So yeah, it's better to buy in bulk. Like if I was to buy one at a time, I mean, it would be more costly, and I'd probably never be able to finish a pedal.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
So is that where the electronics, like wanting to get into this, came from? Was there something else in your background that made you want to get into electronics?
I was always tinkering with things.
Hmm.
When I was much younger, I think I was about 8. My mom bought me. She came back from the thrift store with this old like typewriter. I think it was a typewriter, and it was like an electronic one, and
Hmm.
it had all these moving parts and keys and circuit boards, and I took the thing apart, and then I was like, I want more. I want more to take apart. So I remember just always tinkering with things. I just want to know how it worked. I never quite figured it out because I was just a kid messing around. So that kind of like, I mean, that was something that was always inherent in me, I guess. And but when I discovered this uh, pedal company that gives you a kit and you can build your own, and it was totally along the lines of what I was into. That just like my mind kind of just opened up and was like, well, wait a minute, I can maybe do more of this, and I can maybe then start selling these potentially. So pretty quickly I started buying more parts and more things, and I came up with my logo, which earlier was a script logo, and I started doing water slide decals, and I actually built a few different pedals, and I took them into some guitar shops here in LA,
Hmm.
and just walked in, was like, hey, do you want to sell my pedals? And they're like, yeah, we can do consignment. I'm like, all right, cool. So next thing I know, I got a few pedals like under the glass in their cases. And so that was kind of like the first iteration of it. But again, like at that time I was still learning, and it was a lot of painting by numbers. And I was selling these pedals that were PCBs that I was buying. I was sourcing my own parts to make it cheaper, and and then I started experimenting at that point. Once I had like the idea and the designs that were already pretty laid out for me, started learning how to read the schematic, started doing the breadboarding and just trying to really tweak things and like how can I modify this? And there's like great forums online that I got on. I forget the ones back then, but there were so many great like just sources for people like giving us information and sharing that.
So about when was that?
Well, I started in 2006, and then about 2007, I had them in stores. Well, two stores, and this was just purely consignment operation going on.
Yeah. As
And
many start.
yeah, because back then there was no Instagram, there was no this social media free promoting thing that we have now that's so amazing. Like without Instagram and Facebook, I mean, I don't even know. I guess I'd have to make a whole bunch and convince Guitar Center or somebody, a local like music shop, hey, will you sell my pedals?
Yeah. Take out ads in Guitar Player magazine, which
Yeah. I know we have Reverb,
yeah.
.com that where we can sell stuff. That's actually where I first started selling.
Yeah.
With later on when I was doing actual more custom work and building my own circuits and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
I still have my reverb search for any of your pedals that pop up that I don't already have. They've got to hit in that right time frame of when I have spare money and they become available. And I bought a couple that way. Most of them I bought directly from you. But I remember the first one I bought was the and I there is a video for listeners and those of you on the YouTube channel. There is if you go back a ways back, I did a video on it, but it was long after I bought it. I actually felt bad doing a video on it because I was like, I hate doing a video for something somebody can't go and buy. Like it's like what's the point? But it was the one knob fuzz that you did and
yeah.
these rad enclosures that they're kind of reminiscent of rat enclosures, like the
Yeah,
angled
yeah.
box rat, but they had like the most industrial one knob like gauge from 0 to 100 that I've ever seen. I just fell in love with it immediately.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually I want to do those again. I have some of those same enclosures sitting in a box somewhere waiting.
Oh, those are so cool. It's one of the raddest enclosures. I love that fuzz. You used an amp jewel for it instead of a typical
Yeah.
LED. Um, I don't know. It was just, and that was it for me. I was hooked on them at that point.
I love the
Um,
look of amp jewels on pedals. It's so sexy for me. I was like, okay. Yeah. So when I saw I think I must have seen somebody do it and I was like, I gotta try that. I gotta figure out how that works. And
yeah, I know it's more expensive, but I wish more folks would do it.
I mean, it's not, I mean, yeah, the jewels are more expensive for sure. And there's more time and effort involved than just drilling a hole and sticking a little, you know, LED bezel in there and calling
Right.
it a day. Um, and then I remember I found on some Facebook forum, somebody was showing how they went to the hardware store and they got this brass coupling. And actually, I have one right here. And it happens to fit on the back of the jewel. And then
Oh,
he had this other way that he was using a an LED bezel in there, and it just looks super clean. And so I took notes on that, and I went to this hardware store and I picked up a bunch and I tried it, and that's actually how it's set up inside that one knob.
yeah.
Uh, and I love I want to make things like as bulletproof as possible. I think my chair is sinking. Hold on,
You're good.
slowly going down. I need to buy a new chair.
Yeah. Oh, me too. Me too. This one is an old cast off from a public library. So, um, I because I have public library friends, when they're getting rid of stuff and they're upgrading stuff, I occasionally find it's usually a trash piece, like it's a desk where I can salvage a top from it. The desk itself is not salvageable kind of thing. But I love that kind of stuff. So you build kits for a while. How long before you get away from kits? So as someone who's built some kits, because I have, and I've done a little bit of breadboarding. My brain still doesn't want to make that swap from the kit or like the self-directed breadboard to
Yeah.
putting it together myself on a tag board or a perf board or something like that. When did you make that switch?
That was a little bit later. It was probably around, I want to say 2011
Hmm.
or 12, because I had done the kits for a while. Then I kind of put it on pause. There was some stuff going on in my life. I just kind of was too busy, and I had just graduated from audio school, and I was taking on a new career. So, and what bugged me about the kits was I always felt like I was kind of like faking it.
Okay.
I was selling these pedals with my name on it, and I mean, not that it's a bad thing, but I wanted to do something that was my own creation. Even if I'm copying the schematic of something, I'm still building it from the ground up from scratch. Like that's what I wanted to achieve. And I had no choice. I had to learn how to read schematics at that point, knowing that that was where I wanted to end up. So I spent some time studying schematics and basic electronics, and I'm still not, I'm novice with that, but I can read a schematic, and I can apply that to the breadboard. So that took time. And then about 2017, I decided, okay, I'm going to revive my brand. And that's about the time that I discovered tag boards and turret boards.
Okay.
And that was a whole new inspiration for me. I was like, oh my God, it looks so cool. This looks like an old vintage amp, but it's in a pedal. And I
Yeah.
was like, I want to do that.
So that's
So
getting pretty close to where I discovered your pedals actually, because I think I
yeah, not
bought
too far
my
after that.
I bought that one knob in like 18, maybe 19,
Yeah.
sometime
Yeah,
around then.
probably about 18, 19.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So I went full steam ahead into that. But the transition was slow. It was a lot of just trial and error, and just really learning how to breadboarding was the key to that, like to bridging between the painting by numbers to actually taking a schematic and then putting it into actual, into something physical that works. And understanding the components and what they do. And then also being able to source them. That's another skill. Sourcing
Yeah.
components it's a tricky thing.
When I built my amp earlier this year, I decided I went with a kit mostly for the cabinet, the chassis, for a lot of things, but I wanted to source my own transformers. I wanted to source my own, resistors, capacitors, even as much as I could source my own. And I discovered, oh, this is a whole thing. This is because it is a wild, and I'm sourcing readily available off the bin components. Like there's nothing wild. There's nothing in a Tweed Deluxe that you can't just find from a half dozen other part suppliers. They're going to have everything you need. I
Right.
can't
Right.
I can't imagine sourcing these obsolete components that you're sourcing.
Well,
Uh,
I try to source those and new stuff as well. I mean, I don't always use the vintage parts. Especially with I've started to steer away from the vintage electrolytic capacitors a little bit more these days,
okay.
because they're a little bit more unreliable. They're kind of nearing the end of their life, and but it is a challenge, and now I have like a handful of companies that I know I can go to source parts. eBay surprisingly has been probably the place where I get most of my stuff. Um, Other than CE distribution, which is also amplified parts. Um, but yeah, eBay's great. And I used to be afraid of eBay for the longest time, like you're going to get ripped off.
Right.
But there's a lot of the legitimate, it's not all scammers on there. It's really legit, and there's a lot of you generally 99% of the time getting reliable parts from there.
Have you had any bad experiences on eBay?
Mm, yeah, I bought some transistors from somebody. I think it was across the pond somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Black glass transistors. I think I even posted a picture of it
Oh,
and when I got them, it came. They sent it in a regular old like letter envelope and folded up in a piece of paper. And I got it, and I was like shaking it, and it was just like sounded like there was sand inside. I opened it up, and they were just crushed. So I quickly messaged the person and was like, dude, I sent him pictures. I'm like, you can't send black glass transistors this way,
No.
especially, I mean, overseas. Come on.
Yeah. There's way too many hands and opportunities for crushing to happen
Way
for
too much.
glass. I'm
Yeah.
assuming the moniker is a legitimate one and not because I don't know what a black glass transistor is, listeners. I need you to know that about me. I have no idea, but I'm assuming they are actually glass.
Yeah. Here, I'll show black glass. Honestly, I don't know the actual material they're made out of, but they're
Okay.
called black glass. Here you go. Here's one. Whoop. There we
There
go.
it is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That looks
And
familiar.
they're very fragile.
I have at least one of your pedals that has one of those in there.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Yeah. And sometimes, I mean, if you rub the paint off,
Uh-huh.
it'll be clear. You can see right through it.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, they should sell them that way. That's way cooler.
They do. They do. They have these optical transistors that are OC71s that you can be used for pedals as well. But
I,
yeah.
that's so I was while we were sitting here chatting, I was trying to very surreptitiously take the back off of my Mark III here just so I could show it. This is one of the benefits for you YouTube listeners. You can actually see this. So if you're listening on a audio player, you may have to go and look at this. But so the inside, it's so clean. It's so, and these are old components that you've sourced and found, and I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
what are these, OC76s? Yeah, these are OC76s.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are
It's
nice. I had those in my stash for a long time.
yeah,
I have stuff that I hold on to, and I'm like, okay, that's gonna be something special one day, and then eventually I get around to using it.
yeah,
um, yeah, and then it's got the orange drop caps in there, which I always love the way those look. I love the color of them.
yeah. Orange drops, and then this mustard colored one. I
I can't see it because my screen is blocking it.
Well, you're fine. You're fine.
Yeah,
But I could actually
I'm
probably read
I'm
it.
really stoked to hear that you're playing that thing live, because when I built it, I was like, there's no way that anybody's going to use this live. It's just too big.
No,
Uh,
I don't. No. It goes in a pocket of my gig backpack,
yeah,
and it
I
just
love
goes
it.
on the floor. Because for listeners, there's no power input on this. It's battery powered.
It is.
Although you did put
I put
very,
a.
very intelligently put a battery kill
I
switch
did.
on
Yeah.
it so that I would save some battery. I think I'm only on my second battery in this because it works really well in that case. But
Yeah,
it
they
was
don't have a lot of current draw. The batteries will last a while as long as you turn that bypass when you're not using it off. And also the bypass is only necessary when it's plugged in.
right.
When you
Yeah.
unplug it, it automatically also bypasses the
And
batteries.
I tend to turn it off between sets too, just because
Perfect.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm really really cognizant of that. And there's no LED on it. It's one of those things where it's like, if there's no LED, how do you know it's on? You'll know it's
You don't
on.
know it. Yeah.
You'll know. It's like old fuzz faces. It's like, no, you know it's on.
You know
Yeah,
it's on. Yeah.
there's
It's
no
gonna make some
mistaking
noise.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Glorious noise.
you're one of the brands that, like, selfishly, actually, over the years I've been hesitant to recommend, although in the last few years I've been recommending you a lot to friends. But it's like, if it was really selective, because like when I bought that one knob fuzz, you did 4 of them, 5 of them. Like
I
it was
think
a,
four. Probably
yeah,
four.
it
Yeah.
was a small batch.
Yeah. I typically do four. Occasionally I'll do six,
Yeah.
and sometimes I'll just do one or two. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think the Mark III that I have, you only did like 2 of those. It
I
may have
did only
been,
do two. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And so
Yep.
so it's really good to follow on Facebook and Instagram, by the way, listeners, if you're into this
Yeah.
kind of thing.
I
Also,
have I send out a newsletter. Just and you go on my website, you can sign up on the newsletter. Just giving people the heads up, and kind of just like giving people sort of the, like, hey, you're gonna know about this before anyone else does, kind of situation sometimes, and also discounts and whatever,
yeah.
just yeah, shameless promotion.
Yeah, and all those links are below, listeners, so you can find all those in the either description or the episode notes. But because of the way you've discovered that you really like building pedals, you have kind of limited yourself. I don't know if this is intentional or maybe you're going to grow into other things later, but you do fuzzes and drives because that's that's these classic circuits, not just because they're smaller parts counts, but because, and that is probably a large part of it because of the way you build on perf board and small, tag boards. But also, I feel like there's an art in the fuzz pedal. Like
Yeah,
there's an art in the drive pedal, and that um, it, there are there are so many fuzzes that I feel like it's not fair to call them all fuzz. We need more descriptive terms. The way we have overdrive and distortion and boost, we separate those things out, even though they
right.
all roughly get you in the same spot.
Well, and then there's some fuzz that sound like overdrives,
Oh
that
yeah,
sound like distortions. Like one I made recently was it was based on a Jordan Boss tone,
yeah.
the Alhambra. That one to me sounds many times a lot like a just a high gain distortion. And then the percolator, that's another one that has very much sort of the heart of a distortion, but it's a fun.
I have one of those. I want to use it more, but it doesn't fit the band I'm playing in mostly right now. So it's like we'll find a place
Yeah.
for it though.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. Those are fun. I love them. I just, my love affair with fuzz is, I think, like you're saying, like it's just like there's so many variations on them, but they're so simple, they're so elegant. Um, like no, you can have like 10 fuzz faces, and they're all going to sound a little different,
Yeah,
depending on just the parts involved, the transistors, or the temperature, the weather. The weather can change it. They're unpredictable. They can be a pain in the ass, but that's part of the charm and the love of them, I think. Um, and also, yes, they're smaller part counts, so you can get them on a smaller. When you're doing turret builds, they're way easier to deal with space and get into a smaller enclosure. So there's that as well too.
yeah.
But I'm always trying to like do the style of build that I have with the more complicated stuff. Like I did a tremolo, and I've
Oh
done the
yeah,
muff, and the rat, and a few other things that are a little bit more part count. And my goal is always to try to, how can I get this into the smallest space I can with this type of turret build thing. So
yeah.
it's always I like to challenge myself.
I'm still kicking myself I didn't get one of the tremolos. That's gonna happen if you ever do another round of those. Um, but the
I
rat that you
might have one still.
oh okay. We'll
We'll have to
talk
talk later.
after. Yeah, we'll talk later. Before this airs. So, um,
Yeah, may or may not.
yeah, airs. I love how I still use that term airs because
Yeah,
we air things. But the rat build I found really fascinating when you first posted pictures of that one because you used germanium op amps. Is that right? Or like the
for
eight
the
leg?
no, that's a those are the LM308s, but they're the metal cans. So they're the same op amp used as the typical chips, those little black
Okay,
spider looking chips, but they're just the vintage, they're old NOS stuff that no, they don't make them anymore. I just love the way they look, and they're the perfect vehicle for a turret build because you can spread those legs out and hit your little, solder points.
that
And they
you,
look cool.
listeners, they look like a little tin can spider. It's the most amazing thing. Um,
They
okay,
do,
so they're
yeah.
not they're the same kind of chip, just in a can.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they are. That is one of them right there.
Yeah,
And it's got all these little legs, and yeah, they're cool.
that is so rad. That is, I didn't know
And
those existed until I
they're
saw
they're
your
hard to
build.
come by. They are hard to come by. So I've tried to acquire as many as I can that I can afford. That's the other thing is like, Wayne, okay, should I spend money on this? Yes. Because is it a good idea? Maybe not, because
Yeah,
I got other bills to pay, but
yeah.
I'm gonna find a use for it.
Yeah, because like we said, you don't do this for a living. For a living, you're in audio.
I am. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm an audio engineer.
yeah.
Like I said earlier, I went to audio school and took a break from pedals for a while, and got into. Initially when I went to audio school, I wanted to record bands. I wanted to be a music engineer.
Yeah.
And I quickly found out that there are very few jobs out there in that pay.
Yeah.
And when I was going to school, I was in my early 30s. So I was like, I don't have time to screw around with internships and all that. Uh, and while I was in school, I discovered this thing called audio post production. And that's doing, you can do mixes. There's Foley, there's ADR recording, there's VO recording, there's all this, so many different facets to it, but it's all for television and film and getting that final mix. I'm a re-recording mixer now. And I do the final mixes for some TV shows and documentaries and independent films and stuff.
Yeah. I had a similar experience coming out of audio engineering school in my late 20s. Uh, Although my reason for not pursuing you ended up did pursue it just in a different way. I
Hmm.
also wanted to record bands and do that thing. And
Yeah, that was my fantasy.
yeah, well, I'm hoping to still get to do it here with the studio build that's happening right now. Um, Still waiting on like weather and timing to do some. We got to do some demolition work before we can start the construction work.
Yeah, you
Um,
showed me the blueprint, and that looks amazing. I'm so jealous, and I'm so excited for you too.
yeah.
That yeah,
Be jealous when it's finished. Let's be jealous when it's real. Because right now
yeah,
it's a lot of construction material sitting in my yard is what it is. Because
yeah.
we've got to get in and get a jackhammer to break up some existing concrete that's going to be
Oh,
going away.
yeah.
Because listeners, I have an existing space that has a ramp up to a garage door, and where that ramp is where the expansion is going. So we actually have to tear up the ramp before we can lay the foundation for the new space. And so, yeah, it's just got to wait for it not to be raining, which would be
Well,
great.
you're doing. I think you're doing the right thing where you're building the facility. You're not trying to run out and go work for somebody else.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I mean, maybe it's probably not much different now. But when I was looking for jobs, they were like, "Yeah, you can intern for, 6 months or something, and then if you get lucky, maybe somebody will call in sick, and then you can then you can actually get coffee for them at in that session rather than for all the other people in the office." And I'm like, "What? I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to push faders and I want to set up mics and I want to make music."
I'll be honest, what drove me away was getting my degree. I did some engineering, some projects engineering for other folks, and there were just a couple of really bad experiences dealing with people. It wasn't the tech or the music, or it was just personalities. And I was like, I don't know that I want to do this where I work in a space and I'm told the projects I'm working on, like if I do this, I want to select the projects I decide I want to work on. And that's why I want to do it now, where I'm not doing it for a living, I'm doing it for fun. I get to go out and hunt the projects I want to work on.
I deal with that in post production, but I still love my job. Like, I deal with a lot of interesting personalities, uh,
Yeah.
people that I work with, and also clients too. Clients can always be fun because you never know, who you're gonna get. No, I love it though. It's
It
fun.
stays pretty busy. You really get into what you're doing because, um, when you started to get into this and where you are now,
Hmm.
like the entertainment industry is a totally different place.
Yeah, it's way different. The company I work for right now, we survived the all those strikes that happened not long ago.
Hmm.
And I think early next year there's another strike. Hopefully they negotiate. There's something else coming around the bend. But a lot of people have really struggled. I've been fortunate. Where I work, I get paid whether we have clients in or not.
Hmm.
So I'm always there, just keeping busy doing other things in between the projects. But yeah, I've been really fortunate. But and when I started, I was doing real basic stuff. I was just like setting up sessions, or I was had clients would come in and I'd record them doing a commercial spot. And then eventually they were like, yeah, you can mix the commercial spot now. I'm like, okay, cool. And it went from there. And now I'm re-recording mixer and doing dialogue editing and Foley and sound design and you name it from A to Z. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's a side
been a
of it.
journey.
I don't think a lot of people that want to get into audio engineering, it's a side I don't think many of them see. They don't understand that, you got into it probably because of music. Let's be honest. Almost everyone who gets into audio engineering did it because they're either a musician who wants to do it or they just love music and want to be on that side of the it's rare that I find an audio engineer who is not also a musician, but it does happen.
Right, right, yeah.
And so, um, it's one of those things that people need to know is also available as a job in the field outside
Yeah.
of, you know
It's more common in post production to have engineers that aren't musicians, but um, it's definitely a lot of them are. Yeah. And that's kind of like, yeah, that was their journey, similar to mine. Um, and then when I was in school, I went to a trade school because again, I was in my early 30s and I was like, I don't have time to go to a 4-year university for this. I want to do 9 months, figure it out, and go get some work. And so that's what I did. Trade schools are amazing. Love them. I think that's a great way to go if you're want to specialize in something. And while I was in school, it was all focused on music production, and they had a Foley class where we were going to do Foley for. And if you're not familiar with Foley, Foley is all like the in a movie, in a film, there's like the footsteps you hear, the objects in the room that are making sounds, like when you touch them, cloth, even as simple as that. That's all done on stage, and it's all recorded by a Foley artist. And so we had a class on that, and we got to take. It was a short little clip from, um, oh, what film was it? God, I can't even remember. But so we got to like basically sound design the whole thing. Oh, it was The Matrix. It was a clip from The Matrix. And it was the scene where Trinity is like running across the roof, and then she flies across the buildings and smashes through the window and lands on the ground, and then like shoots the guy or whatever. I
yeah,
think that was the scene.
I can't believe how much I was taken back to 1999 when you described that, like, immediately remembered that scene.
It's amazing. What they gave us was they gave us just the video portion of it, and then we had to create new music for it. We had to create all of the sound effects, all of the Foley. I even did ADR for it. We got a couple. I got one of the other female students in the class to do her
Mhm.
voice. And I remember I needed the sound of like her running across the roof. It was like a tin roof. And I was like, well, what am I going to do for that? Because we didn't have a Foley stage there. So me and my partner, we went down the street on Sunset Boulevard and found an abandoned shopping cart, and we rolled it into the classroom or into the stage where we had the mic set up. And we kind of opened up the little back door on that thing, and we jumped on that thing and started running on it, and it was just rattling. That was the closest I could get at the time. So it was fun. And then once doing that, it kind of opened my eyes to that there's a whole nother world of audio out there for engineering. So I'm grateful for that. Yeah.
I recently watched a video of the BBC radio collection of essentially Foley artists. They have a whole, like, archive of all the stuff they used and still use, because BBC Radio was so famous for their radio dramas. In fact, one of my first attempts of experiencing Lord of the Rings, yes, y'all, I'm a giant freaking nerd. Um, one of my first experiences with Lord of the Rings that wasn't reading the books was the BBC radio drama of Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings, which,
Yeah.
by the way, listeners, if you ever go listen to it,
I had that tape collection.
do you
It,
really?
it came in it came in like a folder. You'd open it up and it had like 4 cassettes or something in there.
Yep,
And I
exactly.
would put that on and I would go into, you know, the J.R.R. Tolkien world.
And listeners, if you are used to Andy Serkis as Smeagol, drop that. If you want to go listen to this, you need to forget what you think uh
Yeah.
Gollum sounds like.
One of my favorite scenes was when they're in the cave and the orcs or whatever are coming, like looking for them.
Yeah.
And that scared the shit out of me listening to that.
Yeah, it's so good, and you don't think about the fact that somebody had to record all the extra sound effects
Yeah.
beyond the dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
We,
so
we have I mean, I have it here at home, a big sound library on a hard drive. And at work, we have a big one. And it's really helpful because I do a lot of sound design and recreate things just from the library. But we also have a stage where we have Foley artists that do the whole thing. But it's fun. It's fun to recreate stuff, especially when you're trying to like create something that you don't have a specific sound for, and you got to take all you're finding like on a sound library, you're finding all these different sound clips of things that are kind of like components of it, and you're building it up until it's like when you're done, like, oh, it sounds like that now. And then, but when you think about a sound and something that you hear in everyday life, there's not just one sound. There's a lot of like layers and levels to it. So when you break it all down, you can find things that sound similar, and then you can build it and recreate it. It's pretty
yeah,
cool.
that is really cool. It's something that you when you're watching a movie, you don't think about the fact that there's if it's done well, you don't think about the fact there's extra sounds that have been added to this. But of
Yeah.
course, those of us of a certain age, listeners, I'm looking at most of you, I know by my demographic data, remember the martial arts movies of the 80s where like every move had an accompanying like wind sound and a snap at the end. Yeah,
Wax on, wax off. Yeah.
somebody had to do all those. Somebody
Mhm.
recorded all those sounds.
The library we have at work has Star Wars, vintage Star Wars sounds. We have TIE fighters and X-Wings and lightsaber sounds and blaster sounds. It's old stuff like from the original Star Wars. It's pretty crazy. I think Lucasfilm put out like a couple of different libraries that you could buy at the over the years.
Oh, that's so cool because
It's cool stuff.
I saw it was probably an Instagram or Instagram reel or like a Facebook video, which are technically reels, I guess, because they're the same company. Anyway, um, I don't think it was TikTok though. That was different. Um, of them making all those sounds, and they talked about how they had to come up. And I now, of course, I can't remember. Thank you,
Yeah, yeah,
age and ADHD. But they talked about it, and it was like so off the wall the way they came up with the sound of the lightsaber swinging. Because
right, right. I'm trying. I remember seeing that.
yeah, I
I don't remember
it,
what it was. Yeah,
yeah,
or the
it,
Millennium Falcon. Such an
yeah,
iconic sound. Or the
yeah,
TIE fighters that screeching and sort of like it's like screaming across the screen.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we all know that sound. Everyone knows that
Oh
sound.
yeah.
Because that's one of those things that's transcended generations because of
Yeah.
the multiple remakes, multiple new movies, whether good or bad. I'm not here to discuss that. That's a whole other podcast. Um, but like R2D2 was sounds on an early synth.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the bleeps and bloops from an early synth.
Old Moogs and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Moog
it's so
synthesizers.
cool. I love this idea, and it's probably some of my doing theater as a or early teen and mid teen, and seeing how sound effects are made because when you're in theater, sometimes you got to make sound effects too because you something isn't loud enough for the audience or creaking doors. You ever tried to make a door creak on command? Good luck.
I probably have 500 different creaking doors in my sound library.
Love
Every
that.
wood doors, metal doors, glass doors, you name
Have
it.
have you managed to work pedals into any of this yet? Have you tried?
uh, no, I haven't actually. And I hadn't thought about that. I should.
Yeah, I think there's
I
space for it.
I think there's the to take it back to pedals. I think there's a lot of similarity in what I do for my full time job and then what I do with pedals, as far as like creating something from nothing. And I mean, taking parts. Essentially, my components are kind of like the sound effects or the other tools I use at work, and you put them all together, and then you make something out of it. So it's I think that's just that thread runs through everything I do, and
Yeah.
that's probably why I enjoy it so much.
So
Yeah.
has there been any potential like future looking because then like we've talked about, you do these small run things that are really rad. I have two or three things at this point now that I'm pretty sure you only did two or three of. I have the space duster that I freaking adore. I'm gonna loan that to a buddy of mine who told me he's never gotten to play through a Germanium treble booster, and I'm like, well, sir, I'm gonna make your week that I loan this to you. So,
That's an underrated circuit for sure.
it
I think a
really
lot of
is.
yeah, a lot of people don't know really how to use it. I think
Yeah.
that's why they don't like it, or they just never heard of it.
Yeah. Well, most people today are just running into clean amps and they don't know that, you need to your amp needs to be working a little bit first. Like
Yeah, a lot of bedroom guitarists like myself um, can't turn the amp up, but
yeah.
thanks to like I have an aux sitting behind me. Thanks to things like that, I can crank my amp now.
I everybody wants to talk about digital and the recent Boss pedal came out that was a whole thing and maybe we'll talk
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that
yeah.
on Patreon, maybe we won't.
I, I,
And
I,
but I
I was gonna
think
say I'm not opposed to all that stuff. That stuff it's
no.
another tool.
Yeah.
It's another thing we can use to make noise.
But I also think we are in the single best time to be an amp player
Yeah.
in the history of guitar amps. And people think I'm insane saying that, but we have so many tools that have now made amps actual, legitimate, fire breathing tube amplifiers
Hmm.
usable in any situation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah, so I struggled for a long time finding the right kind of reactive load reamping box, or not reamping box, but like the like the with the aux you can play it with or without your amp connected, and it's essentially soaking up the load so that you're not blowing your amp up because it's not going to the speaker. But I searched for a long time trying to find the right one that sounded good with fuzz
Yeah.
for me, and I know a lot of people can get their fuzzes to sound great on other ones, but I went through three different or two or three different things, and I could never get it to sound the way I heard it in the room. And
Oh,
when I got the
interesting.
aux, immediately I plugged it in and turned it on. It was like, oh, hey, it sounds great. Now I get to tweak it and make it sound better. It's
I'm gonna
such a cool thing.
put a pin in that. I want to talk about that in the Patreon because I've had an experience recently that has sent me down a similar route. But I also don't want to. I don't want to say it on the main episode because I'm gonna name brands. And I don't want to do that on the one where everybody gets to hear it.
Right. Okay.
So but I think part that is making us into a world where tube amps. I do actually believe we were going down a route that was going to mean there were way 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 fewer tube amps being made, but these
Yeah.
tools being made have made it all viable again.
Yeah. And then there was the actual tube scare we went through where
Yeah, when the
uh
the Chinese factory burned.
yeah, everybody thought that like tubes were going to go obsolete, and which they kind of were, and then they got bailed out, and then now we're kind of nobody's worrying about it anymore. We're
Yeah,
It's like it never
they
happened.
Yeah, well, they got that factory got back up and running. They rebuilt it. It's bigger than it was before. They're putting out quality tubes. So,
Yeah,
then of course the JJ factory has just been. They're like, we're still just over here doing it. I
yeah,
did hear at one point they were operating during that scare. They ended up operating at something like 103% of capacity. Like they were putting out more tubes than their facility should have allowed them to be able to put out to try to make up for it. So so you've been doing these small batches, and I love that you're doing the small batches, even if that means sometimes I don't get to buy one. Um, is there any thinking in the future moving to something more standard line so that you can make it more available to people? Or are you going to stick with the small batch thing?
it's gonna be small batch for a while. I'd like to at some point ramp it up.
Hmm.
My wife and I have talked about that a few in a few different times. Just like what's the future of like where we're gonna live, and are we always gonna be in the area where my work is? I mean, I could do audio other places too, but I mean, LA. I don't live in LA, but I'm just right outside. Is kind of like that's kind of the mecca for it, or I guess that's changing, but um, so yeah, like I would eventually, I think, like to move away from audio in post production, and maybe in retirement, or because it's such a it's so hard to scale up.
Yeah.
So I got to
especially
find
the
this.
way you do it, especially
Yeah,
using.
that's the thing. I got to find a way to scale it up so that, and okay, you know who's an inspiration to me is Mike from Seeker Effects.
Oh
Seeker,
yeah,
he's found a way brilliantly to do the boutique hand wired stuff to these PCBs that look kind of vintage and look really cool.
yeah.
So I love his stuff. And we've actually become friends over the years too, because he doesn't live too far from me. But um, so if I was ever gonna do it or when I do it, I will be, yeah, picking his brain on like, hey, what's the right way to go about this?
I also think in the same vein, like someone who I think of in like the same lane as you, maybe not vein, but lane, is like Chris from R2R Electric.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
he does
He,
it and has scaled it up, managed to scale it up in the last few years.
that's
Um,
yeah, another person that definitely has inspired me as well, and he does some amazing stuff. And yeah, he's the transistor dumps he does on Instagram. I'm just like, where did you get all this? And not just where did you get it? How the hell did you afford that?
yeah,
I mean, but he makes the investment, and I'm sure that he gets a lot of return on that.
yeah,
So because he's
that's
done
awesome.
great work. Yeah.
Yeah, he is doing great stuff. I've gotten to play a few of his. But I just love that there are still people, because one day, I know we've been saying this for a long time, but one day all these NOS germanium things are gonna dry up, and it's coming
Yep.
quicker.
That's why I've been stocking up on stuff and stocking up on silicon transistors, because those are still a relatively kind of untapped market. Um, it's I would say like silicon transistors is kind of where germanium was like maybe like 15 years ago.
Really?
Um, where it was way more available. Um, and but it's a steep curve, man. It's starting to like people are catching on, and people are like just I have stockpiles of stuff that I'm just waiting to use, and I'm trying to also hide some germaniums for rainy days, because like eventually they're just gonna be gone. I mean, that's just that's a fact,
Yeah.
unless somebody like they did with tubes revives it somehow.
Yeah, I know nothing about the harvesting of germanium, the process of creating them. I just know that the thing I've always been told, they used to be used in everything until silicon became more stable version of the same thing. Because for most applications, silicon is the better transistor because it's stable, it's reliable, longer shelf life, more readily available. Um, but for audio applications, we love the sound of germanium. I like the sound of silicon too. I don't want to sound like I'm poo-pooing on the existence of silicon, because I have tons of fuzzes just in general, but I have a lot of silicon fuzzes that sound amazing. But I know that I prefer the sound of the germanium stuff, despite living in Mississippi where there's certain gigs I can't take them on.
Yeah, a lot of it depending on how you set up silicon fuzz. Like some are hard. It's hard to tell the difference sometimes.
Yeah,
But I think it's hard to tell the difference from the outside looking in, like as the observer hearing it, but the player can tell. That's where the big difference is. Like it's a feeling. It's the connection you have between your guitar, your instrument, and the amp, and that pedal in between, and how it's reacting. It's that little X factor that can inspire you as a player to do something a little different or better or whatever, or
yeah.
just the enjoyment factor.
See, that's what I tell people all the time. Everybody wants to tell me the audience can't hear the difference. I don't. The gear I play is not for the audience.
Right, right, right.
The
Yeah,
gear I choose to play is for me, because it gets me
yeah,
excited to play it. I get excited taking a pedal the size of my shoe out on a gig. It makes
yeah.
me happy. It
And the
also
audience
helps.
isn't hearing your gear; they're hearing your passion that's coming through the gear.
Right. That's exactly it. Otherwise, there's an awful lot of musicians that wouldn't have a career. Um, we won't go there. Um, all right, Eric. Well, it's been great. We're gonna switch over to Patreon, so that you can get your. We're gonna take a break so you can put your phone on a charger real quick,
Yeah, yeah.
and then we're gonna switch over to Patreon. But where can everybody find you? Incidentally, listeners, all these links are below.
BreñaEffects.com. That's my website, my web store. And then you can also find me on Instagram and Facebook as
Yeah.
well. For Breña
Also,
Fetch.
there's a really great Facebook group that you run called Make Pedals Not War. So if you're into
Nice.
making pedals,
I
we're
forgot
gonna
about that.
we're gonna
Yeah.
mention that as well. It's a great little group. I love hanging out in there, even if I don't make pedals. So
Yeah. It's for everyone. It's not just for pedal builders. Yeah. I try to make sure that, keep it open to everyone. It's like anything music related. Just go ahead and drop something on there.
yeah, I love it. So if I remember that part, I'll drop that link for the Facebook group down
All
in
right, cool.
the
Thank you.
the in
Appreciate
the
it.
links below. Well, all right. Well, listeners,
All right.
thank you for hanging out. We're gonna go over to Patreon. Eric, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. I'll see you in a few minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the rest of you, if you want to hear the rest of the conversation with Eric, you can go over to patreon.com/40watt podcast. That is 40-watt podcast, not the word 40. I wasn't thinking about that when I named the podcast. Sorry, y'all. But go over there, $5 a month, help support the podcast, make new episodes happen, and you'll get extra episodes every time an episode drops. But until next time, hope I see you again. Be good to yourselves, be kind to each other, and make some noise.
Thanks, Philip. Bye, everyone.